Hello everyone, and welcome to Pembroke in Depth. This month, I'm going to be talking with our treasurer collector, Kathleen McCarthy. Again, I'm Bill Chenard, the Pembroke Town Manager. We're going to be talking about collection activities and treasurer activities within the town and what the treasurer collector's office does on their day-to-day function. So, welcome Kathleen. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
But before we start, I'm just going to go into a little bit of a commentary on the importance of the treasurer collector activities. It is a member of the triad that we've talked about before. I know we've done a previous show with the assessors. I consider the triad to be one of the most important aspects of municipal management. They deal with all of our functions surrounding town finances. So the assessor's office, the treasurer collector, and the town accountant or town comptroller. Absolutely critical to the municipal finance operation. So we're going to get into it a little bit. We're going to start by talking about the collector's office and what their functions are. So Kathleen, can you tell us a little bit what taxes and fees does the collector's office typically collect?
Sure. We have some basic everyday ones, but we have real estate, personal property, we have water, we have trash, we have excise bills. Real estate and personal property go out about 4 times a year, due August, November, February, and May. Trash bills go out twice a year. They're due in August and February. And excise bills are committed to us by the registry. We receive anywhere from 7 to 10 different commitments throughout the year, depending on if you're re-registering your car or such like that. And water bills go out in the spring and fall when the meters are read. Basically, we have about just under 7,000 real estate bills that go out, just under 150 personal property. We have around 22,000 excise bills that go out, and basically the 6,700 of water and trash as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the real estate and personal property bills are billed quarterly.
Correct.
And as you said, they're due August 1st, November 1st, February 1st, and May 1st. What happens if one of those days falls on a weekend or a holiday?
A holiday, it's due the following Monday.
Okay. So again, if your bill's due on the 1st, your bill will actually reflect the actual due date when you receive your bill. So if it's the 1st is a holiday, it will actually say it's due on the 2nd or the 3rd or the 4th, so that you can just follow what it says on the bill when you do receive your bill. But you should be looking for your bills about a month ahead of when they're due.
At least 30 days.
So what should someone do if they don't get their bill in the mail?
So it does end up being on the resident on whether or not you receive your bill. We do an affidavit through the post office, and it is the resident's responsibility to know that the bills are due quarterly. Should you not receive it, you can just check in with the collector's office. You can email us, call. Also, 99% of the people right now have a mortgage, and their taxes are escrowed anyway. So you're still going to receive your bill, and either in your agreement with your mortgage company, you either have to mail it off to them, or they call us or email us and they get a direct file from us on what's due for the taxes.
Yeah. So let's shift gears and talk a little bit about the excise a little bit, because it's easy to predict when you're going to get your real estate or personal property bill, and you should be looking for it about a month ahead of the due date.
Sure.
But excise taxes aren't quite the same. It's dependent upon when we get that from the Registry of Motor Vehicles.
Sure.
So, those bills come in, they start when?
Okay, so as long as your car is registered before, say, November of the prior calendar year, you're going to be on what's called the first commitment from the registry, and that's going to go out around January, due in February. And then thereafter, anything of any new purchases, owner transitions, or anything like that, like I said, they get committed in the 2nd to 7 or 10 commitments thereafter.
Which can happen anytime
Throughout the year.
And the reason they issue more commitments is because people buy cars and aren't on that first registration.
Correct.
So what if someone buys a new car and they trade an old car? They're entitled to an abatement. They would actually apply for the abatement with the assessor's office.
Correct.
But you guys, the collector's office, would then process that. But they just as an important fact, if you trade your vehicle and get a new vehicle, you will get a new excise tax abatement. Go visit the assessor's office. Don't visit the collector treasurer. They're not going to be able to help you.
You're more than welcome to come see us, though. We will tell you what documentation you need and how to go about it.
Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit. What if someone doesn't pay their bill timely? What is the procedure? So let's start with real estate tax. What happens if a bill isn't paid on time?
Sure. So real estate tax bills, like we had talked about, go out quarterly. And then if they're not paid at that point, we send out what's called a demand notice. And then about 30 days thereafter that's due in 2 weeks. Should you not pay it, we give it like about an additional 15 days, 30 days. We then send out a warrant through the deputy collector, and that's a mailed warrant. And then should you not pay that, then we send out what's called a hand-delivered warrant also through the deputy collector. Thereafter that, should it remain unpaid, we send you a letter of intent to advertise. So what that does is that's starting the process of a tax taking. That's so then if you don't pay that within 2 weeks, then you actually get advertised in a local paper, and that's protecting the interest of the town for the tax dollars that they're trying to collect. And then if you do not pay it thereafter the advertisement, the town proceeds with a process called tax taking on it. We then picked a date of a time that was advertised in the paper, and then we announced that we're going to do a tax taking. All the amounts of revenue that were uncollected from the collector's office then get transferred into the treasurer's office, 2 different departments. And then there is what's called a tax taking lien placed on your property at the registry of deeds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we don't want to have to do that. You know, it's an important aspect. It protects the integrity of the town's finances, but we would prefer not to have to do that. So pay your bill, communicate with the collector's office, and understand what happens. What about water? What if someone is late with water? It's a different process. It ends
Sure.
up almost similar, but it's a very different process to begin with.
Like I had stated prior as well, water and trash are handled the same way, so we can touch
Yeah.
base on both. They're both sent out twice a year. Like I said, water, spring and fall. Board of Health is, the recycling is basically dealt with for August and February. Should you not pay that, you also receive the demand notice on both of the bills. And then should you not pay those, then you get what's called an intent to lien letter. And should it then proceed to be uncollected, the town actually places a lien on your real estate bill. It takes the receivables off of the water enterprise or the trash enterprise and places it onto your real estate bill, which is broken down on your actual billing cycle. So that's the February bill that you'll receive. And you were also, unfortunately at that time, assessed a $100 lien fee.
So you mentioned enterprise funds. I'm just going to note that the town as an entity has different fund structure for collections. One of those obviously is real estate, personal property. Those are committed taxes that are due. But enterprise funds function a little bit differently. Enterprise funds are based on user fees. So if you use water, depending upon how much water you use, you'll be billed for that water, and that is a self-sustaining fund. It's called an enterprise fund. Solid waste and recycling functions the same way, which is why you pay a solid waste fee for curbside pickup. There's also certain fees associated with the recycling center or bulky items. Bulky items, you know, if you want to get some real good detail on the trash and recycling, we did a show a couple of months ago. Check that one out. It'll explain that process. But the actual enterprise funds function as a business. The income must support the costs, and we have to balance those budgets on an annual basis. So let's shift a little bit. Let's talk about what you collect. I mean, how much you collect. I mean, I actually was absolutely amazed. I mean, as a town manager, with your staff. So let's start with residential real estate. About how much does the office collect on an annual basis?
So residential and commercial together are around 47 million. Residential is around 4.3 million, and commercial, industrial, and personal property together are around 5.4 million.
Okay. And then excise tax?
Excise is around 3.15
Okay. And
million.
water billing?
2 and 2.4 maybe,
Yeah,
around,
yeah. Good. And then obviously solid waste and recycling.
right around 2.3.
Okay. And so what you're saying is that your office, the collector side of the house, actually collects nearly $54 million on an annual basis, or at least for the last fiscal year.
But that's just the tax bill portion of it. That's not including all the receivables we do on the other back end as well within the departments.
Right.
And,
Departmental turnovers
Yep.
and all of that.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's an important factor also, that not just the collector's office, but recreation, you know, they take in fees for services. Building permits, one of the bigger ones in the town, takes in fees for services. The selectman's office, town manager's office, we take in fees for licenses and other things that they license. Town clerk takes in fees.
School department?
School department is huge. I mean, their turnovers are gigantic. when it comes to the fee structure. So how many staff do you have on the collector side?
On the collector side, I have an assistant collector and one principal clerk.
So yourself and two others, when we added it all up, it's probably close to $60 million. Impressive, very, very impressive. So let's tell us a little bit about the deputy. I want to understand and let people understand, because one of the questions that I frequently get is, what is a deputy collector? Don't you have a treasurer collector that does that work? So if you have an unpaid excise tax bill, it would you'd send notices and then forward it to the deputy. Can you talk about what happens with unpaid excise tax?
Sure. Actually, the deputy collector helps us with the warrants on the real estate and personal property as well. So it's once the collector's exhausted their means of collections under the statute, we can hire what's called a deputy collector. It's a next step in collections. They're bonded and they're all trained into doing the collection process. They also handle bankruptcies or collection on unpaid bills for the towns as well. Like I had stated, they'll do a mailed warrant and then a hand delivered. They'll actually go house to house to find it. And they also handle what's called a flagging at the registry. So we had touched base on real estate, but this is what happens with motor vehicle. So you go through the billing, the demand, the two warrant process, and then you're actually flagged at the registry for non-payment, for non-renewal. So you can't re-register your car or renew your license until that's paid, and they handle that part of it.
So pay on time, avoid those fees, avoid those interests.
They can get large, fast,
yeah,
and excise.
the registry is challenging to deal with when you have unpaid taxes. You can't register, and it just gets so frustrating. So would you describe a deputy collector as almost a collection agency for the town?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's the easiest way that I always, when someone comes to me and says, what is a deputy collector? We have no clue what's going on. And I always describe it, well, if you have unpaid bills that we have to forward out, the deputy collector is effectively a collection agency. So what else does a collector's office do?
So our collector's office also handles the recycling stickers for any of the residents that want to go and get rid of any kind of items that are not allowed at curbside pickup. They also handle toter inventory. Any toter that you see out there is assigned to an actual trash bill with a serial number on it, and that's maintained, as well as the outstanding stock that we still have in sales. We also handle municipal lien certificates. For all of you that know or have gone through a closing, those are legal documents that are requested through your closing attorney, and that represents any of the town's interest and any money that might be owed on that parcel that is involved in that closing that day, whether it's a lien, interest. We also handle, well, we can touch base on the treasurer's office later, but the septic betterment program, it would reflect that. So then we also handle customer issues, questions, concerns over the phone during the daily business, over the counter, email, by mail, and it's not just always residents, it's also we're talking to your mortgage companies, we're talking to your closing attorneys, we're constantly talking to real estate agents in town and going over prorated bills for the closing date, and you're going to close 30 days into the month, so you're at the second month of the fiscal year, so you're going to owe 60 days out of 365 days and such. We go over all that with the residents. We also handle the tax files to the mortgage companies to pay your taxes on your behalf, and uploading bills to the collection program that we use, as well as the online program, and then we have the downloads from the online program. We have the Dropbox that has to be processed daily. The customers at the counter, the draw has to be processed daily. We have, I could just keep going, but it's a very busy office.
Yeah.
We have employees coming in too with their turnovers and their
right, because as we get to talk about the treasurer a little bit, employees, you do paychecks, everybody's paychecks. So yeah, I would characterize the collector treasurer's office as one of the busiest offices in our community. So we're going to shift a little bit now. Let's talk a little bit about the treasurer. The collector is the office that functions for taking in money. I guess I would probably describe the treasurer's office as the office that manages our funds. So can you tell me a little bit what the primary responsibilities of the treasurer's office are?
Sure. So you could just think of it this way. Every single penny that the town takes in, whether it's a department, the school, state money, it all comes in through the treasurer's office one way or another. Whether it's a wire, it's a turnover from a different department. Like I said, state aid comes through the wires. Any grants that any of the departments might apply for. all come through. They're balanced with the coinciding departments at the moment, and then thereafter, where it's accounted for, it's then invested under Mass General laws with the back end idea for safety, liquidity, and yield as far as what we're doing for the statute or what we're held to for investments. We also do investments from time to time, short and long-term investments, like you would see at town meeting where the town's residents vote to put money into stabilization funds or OPEB. That's invested a little bit different. It's more
OPEB stands for other
post-employment
post-employment
benefits.
Right.
So that's basically when you retire, how the town's going to handle your health insurance. Also the pension, such like that. So then the money, like I said, was invested. But in the meantime, the treasurer's office balances with the department when it happens, whoever brings over the money. Then they balance weekly within itself of every penny that they've taken in. And then it's brought to the bank, obviously, and invested. And then we do a monthly balancing with the town accountant. And like I said, checks and balances and everything with the town accountant. That's going to involve all the funds that have also come in, like I had stated, through the wires or anything like that. And then not only do they balance, or do we balance on that level, we also have to balance on a state level. We have to report to the DOR, which we just finalized the fiscal year. So we reported anything that we had invested, how it was invested, what accounts it was invested in, as well as we can touch it a bit later about like the receivables, balancing with the DOR and reporting it. And we're also audited twice a year, once from an outside firm, and they go through all the books, start to finish, how the money came in, how it's invested, and how it's then spent out. And the DOR also does an audit on us.
So talk about someone who knows their stuff. That's critical to our operations. So, some of the other things that you do, payroll and benefits is a huge part of the treasurer's function, and you know you handle anybody who gets a check from the town of Pembroke is cut by your office.
Payroll or vendor.
Correct. So anything going out, if you're going to get a check, it's coming from the treasurer's office. So let's talk about payroll and benefits for a minute. New hire comes in, we hire somebody, we send them to you.
Correct.
And you basically their first, other than their interview and their job offer, their first big interaction with the town is with the treasurer's office. Can you talk about that briefly?
Sure. So currently the town's payroll consists of just under 550 school employees and a little over 300 town employees, part-time and full-time, and details or annual employees included. So they implement, administer, and balance all benefits that the town offers, whether it be health insurance, dental, life, short-term, long-term disabilities, flex spending. They also assist the employees with their 457 or their 403B, which you might not know what it means. It's deferred comp, it's an investment, an annuity for some outsiders, but it's a municipal term for what we are eligible for. So when those bills are, when you sign up for health insurance, dental, such, we then set up a deduction from your payroll. We take the money from your payroll, that we then have to accept it in as a withholding receivable back to the town, and then we have to actually pay the bill with it, so that all has to be balanced as well, to match also with the town's funds contribution portion of it. That can be a little tedious because we also have some residents, some employees, I apologize, that self-pay with their checks. And then we also have deductions coming in from Plymouth County Retirement and Mass Teachers, our retirees, that money's deducted from their pension checks that we also have to account for and balance that way. Speaking of, we also handle the pension for the teachers or our Mass Teachers, Plymouth County, the town employees. And then if you're not a full-time person, then you contribute to what's called an OBRA account. So you have to contribute to something because municipal employees don't contribute to Social Security.
Correct.
So they mandated to contribute. So we handle all that as well. We also handle the unemployment for the town, where I don't know if you want to touch base on, I know we're short on time, the town self-insured for unemployment. So it is every person that applies for unemployment, you actually have to get involved and detail-oriented on each employee. It's not just a payroll tax that we pay so that somebody else handles it. We actually handle it on our own. We do ACA compliance with the health insurance, mass health restrictions. We do the Gatsby reporting. We do state and federal filing. We do the employment, the payroll part of workers' comp and 111F. It's injured on duty. We handle the wellness program in there, Corey checks for the staff.
I just want to touch base on the unemployment piece a little bit
Sure.
because I know that the town had an unemployment issue because someone
Sure,
filed
during COVID.
unemployment using my name. So that's why it's critical that your office manage that and make sure that this person is indeed on unemployment.
Yeah, we actually had a substantial amount of unemployment fraud claims during COVID.
Yeah. And the Affordable Care Act, as you said, the ACA, you know, that's going back and forth with the Commonwealth. So one other factor I wanted to touch on today, you know, I go to town meeting and I ask for money. The town funded the community center as an example. I'm just going to use that as an example, the debt and borrowing. The treasurer's office actually handles all of the borrowing procedures. I mean, we work as a team, but ultimately it's the treasurer's office that does that. And then debt service, same thing. So can you talk to us a little bit about so I go, they give me, you know, $20 million for a community center, and I say, Kathleen, we need this money. What do you do?
It starts way before that, but I know I could talk for days on this, so it starts way before that. So the concept comes in of what you're going to borrow at town meeting, what you'd like to spend or what have you. And we have a financial advisor that we work with, which is Hilltop, and we also have what's called bond counsel. It's our attorneys that handle our finances. At that time, Bill wants to spend $20 million at community center. He brings it to me. I go through bond counsel. We have to get what's called the correct motion and such like that. It has to be approved through them to even go to town meeting. Goes to town meeting. It gets put through. If it's a debt exclusion, it has to go to the election. Then they have to work on all the wording and the verbiage for the ballot question. It goes through there. Great. We're happy. But that just starts the actual borrowing process. So then we send all the proper documentation from town meeting or the election to bond counsel and our financial advisors. And we sit down and they have to give us what's called a green light letter. It's basically your letter to state that the town's authorized and within its means to borrow. We have statutes that we have to go by. We have, like you would with your own personal credit card, we have debt limits that we have to stay within. And we have to portray out there to people that we can afford our own debt. We have to justify it. So with the green light letter, then we proceed on to what's called a Standard & Poor phone call or Moody's, and that's getting a new credit rating for the town. Just like yourself, you have a 780 or 840 credit rating. The town also has the same structure, but we're a AA stable, which is great. We have been for years. So we go through that. Hopefully we maintain the same credit rating, and then we have to do what's called, we have to go out in the market, and we try to sell our debt to individual companies or such like that. They bid it out. They bid out what their net interest cost is going to be, what they might potentially pay us up front for a premium. And I don't want to get into how we're allowed to use that or such like that, but then we close on the bond, the funds come in, and then we have to, at that point, when the bond comes in and it's approved, we then set up a debt structure. So then you pay it within, like your mortgage company, you know what you're going to have to pay for the next 20 years. Well, the town's now liable to pay those payments for the next 20 years. So we then have the debt budget that has to be included with.
Yep. And so that's a great example for the community center, but the town can also borrow short-term debt for vehicles and things like that, 5, 7, 10, 15 years. So, all of that is in play. Treasurer is responsible for procuring bank services. That's where we invest, where our day-to-day interactions happen. Great job with that.
I just want to touch base. Like we do have over 115 bank accounts right now. The town
that you manage on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis. Yeah. So cash reconciliation. You talked about that. That's an incredible, important piece that makes sure that we reconcile our cash, daily, weekly, monthly, and work with the different agencies that do that.
As well as the expenditures out too. We didn't even touch base about vendor.
Vendor checks, vendor checks. So if I have a bill, I present it, it gets processed through the system, and you cut the check and the check gets mailed. So very, very important piece too. And then I know we're short on time, but final question, the annual audit. You work with the accountant, and our auditors are contracted, they're not internal town employees, to take a look at that. That's legally required, but it's also very important. You want to touch base just quickly about why that's important and what are the advantages and to talk about how well we've done with our audits.
Of course, yep. So it's an outside firm that comes in and it's checks and balances. Let's face it, we're touching millions of dollars every day, whether it's in, it's out, it's borrowed, it's what have you. So it's, like I said, an outside firm coming in, and they do a start to finish. They're going to show, I think I had touched base on it earlier as well, but they're going to look at how that money came in, where it came in, checks, if it came in online, if it came in with cash, how it was posted, how it was reported to the treasurer's office, how it was reported to the accountant's office, how it was then posted in the accounting system that we have, which is called Munis. And then, therefore, the end all is then how it's spent out. Who signed for it? Let's see the warrant. Then they're going to look for the actual paper check itself, and they're going to see who it was cashed by, copies of it, and such like that. Not even just that, they check all of our grant money, make sure it was all on the up and up. All of our state money, they do an individual audit in that, and they also do an audit in the school department.
Mm-hmm. So as we conclude today, I just wanted to congratulate Kathleen. A AAA stable is an outstanding bond rating for a community. There are hundreds of communities in Massachusetts that don't have a AAA, that are AA stable. AAA, very few have AAA. That's less than 20 in the Commonwealth. So AA stable, hundreds that in Massachusetts, and hundreds of thousands throughout the country that aren't a AA stable. So outstanding job there. I also want to thank Kathleen for being here today. Wonderful job. It's important as we do that. And to remind everybody that there are other Pembroke In-Depth shows that are out there. There's the summer safety program with the beaches and insects. There's the solid waste and recycling. There's the assessors. If you haven't seen those, take a look. They're archived, and watch those. So we'll see you again next month. Thank you for the opportunity, as I do always, to PAC TV. They're a terrific corporate partner. And that concludes this episode of Pembroke In Depth.